This weekend, we recognize our patron saint, St. Paul. We have a different set of lessons than any other congregation this morning, except maybe another congregation named St. Paul's. The actual day on the liturgical calendar is January 25th, and we transfer the celebration to Sunday so that we can all remember the story of Paul. The story of a patron often shapes the character, direction, and calling of a church. So the conversion of Paul gives us a time for consideration as a congregation. We consider Paul and his big, bold actions and his personal, caring actions. The story of the conversion of Paul, our patron, is an inspiring story. The story of the conversion of Paul is really a story of big change. Paul had real impact on his world. So Paul, formerly called Saul, was a learned man. He was a rabbi. He was a powerful, mainstream mover and shaker. Earlier in the book of Acts, Paul is talking to King Agrippa and says, "You know me. I have belonged to the strictest sect of our religion and lived as a Pharisee." Paul was persecuting the followers of Jesus, chasing them down, causing them great harm and death. It was not long after the death and resurrection of Jesus that this took place. The followers of Jesus' way were trying to make their way, holding on to the hope of Jesus' return. Then Paul was stricken on the road to Damascus, blinded by the light. Acts 9 gives us a little more detail. It's one of 3 versions of this story in the scriptures. The blinding light was followed by 3 days of darkness for Paul. He was literally blinded. Then the kindness of a faithful stranger, Ananias, prayed and gave Paul new sight. In that new sight, there was revelation of God's love that so transformed Paul that he repented. He stopped and turned and went back in the direction of God. It was a revelation of God's love that so inspired Paul that he took the message on the road. So in case you're wondering where I'm going with this is not a description of sabbatical. Someone said to me this week, "Wow, you're going on sabbatical, lots of adventures." And I thought, not like Paul's adventures, thank you very much. But Paul's adventures have certainly shaped our congregation of St. Paul. And the story of our patron often shapes the character of a church. Big, bold actions, that's us. Personal, caring actions, that's us too. So we chose this patron saint weekend for me to begin sabbatical. Let me take a step back for a minute and describe that process for you. Our St. Paul's has received a grant for a sabbatical from the Lilly Foundation. It's called a clergy renewal grant. Funds that help cover the base while I'm gone, and funds for me to travel while I'm on sabbatical. So the definition of sabbatical is this: an extended period of leave from one's customary work, especially for rest and to acquire new skills or training. So St. Paul was on a mission. I'm going on sabbatical. St. Paul's decided to apply for this renewal grant about a year ago. It's a long process. The process called for a committee to be formed, and my committee included Margot Vucic, our senior warden, vestry members Joanne Grubman and Sandy Norman, former senior warden Christina Druin, and former vestry member Deborah Phelan. So about a year ago, we were looking into 2016, and we were trying to pick a start date. Given the arrival of our new rector, the time of the conversion of Paul seemed very fitting. It's the first date listed in the sabbatical plan. So the conversion of Paul gives us some time for consideration, as it gives me time for consideration as I move out into sabbatical. The story of the patron informs all of us, and our St. Paul's has made a significant impact on my life, and it's made a significant impact on the lives and families in our community, near and far. We've been hearing about this impact over the last few months, and you've seen our wonderful visuals. Impact, inspiring more people to act in community together. Inspiring more. I think St. Paul invented that concept. In the past 2 weeks of our 3-week stewardship campaign, we've heard specifically about St. Paul's impact through Family Promise, our ministry to children and families without homes. We heard about Paul's Place and our after-school program that has transformed children and families in our neighborhood. Today, we'll hear witness from a wonderful young family about the pastoral care and prayer of this community. These 3 weekends in January have really been designed to inspire us, to remind us of how important our faith community is in our lives and in the lives of others. I know how important it is in my life. And we are inspiring more. If you missed any of these stories, take a look at the big red impact bulletin board in the courtyard and read and hear and see what this community has done in the name of Paul and in the name of Christ. We are also creating new times of conversation in these new weeks in the new year. We're hosting meet and greets for our new rector, the Reverend Paul Kane, and his wife Irene. We're engaging in conversations, recounting our stories, looking again at our foundation, readying for our next phase. So a short commercial announcement. If you haven't signed up yet for a meet and greet, or maybe you think you've already met Paul, and that's good, consider signing up for one of the meet and greets today. These are opportunities for our voices to be heard and hear each other and really engage in where we're going next. Where is the Spirit leading us? Now that is more akin to sabbatical. Where is the Spirit leading us? A time to step back for a better view of our foundational pieces. When I was considering sabbatical, I used the image of a mosaic. A mosaic is created from small, often broken pieces of glass, molded together in a pattern that creates a new whole. Stepping back on sabbatical gives one a better view, the bigger picture. When you look at the small pieces of a mosaic, they're beautiful. But when you take a step back and look at the whole sweep, it's a wonderful new image. This is what I plan to do on sabbatical, to step back and look at the mosaic of experiences, the little pieces of God's design for my life. It's time for me to take a step back, to retreat, to restore, and to retool for our next phase of parish life. As I take a broader look at my mosaic, the congregation is doing much the same as we enter into our next phase. Taking a look at the foundational pieces of our mosaic, the ministries and the pastoral care that are the small parts that make our amazing whole. Answering the question posed recently by one of our vestry members: how do we prepare to serve those who God is sending to us next? That's the question for all of us right now. I will retool some, you will examine, and the sabbatical committee will keep us in touch in that conversation. They'll keep you advised while I'm away and engage everyone in the themes of sabbatical. I'm starting my time this week by going up to Gainesville to have dinner with my niece. She's a sophomore at UF, and she said to me, "Aunt Kathleen, when are you coming up to see my new dorm? I want to show you my classrooms." That's my starting place. Then I'll be spending some time at the Virginia Seminary campus. I want to add some theological energy to the work that I'm doing. I've got several books on my reading list, but right now they mostly come from the New York Times bestsellers that I haven't had time to read. So I'm going to be finding some wonderful new theological books. What's going on in the bestseller list at Virginia Seminary? Then I'll spend some time on Long Island, on the North Shore, reading, writing, resting, visiting with family. I have 2 brothers on Long Island and 2 sisters in Manhattan that I haven't spent much time with lately. Then, after Easter in April, I'll travel to England, Scotland, and Ireland to experience Celtic Christianity. Celtic Christianity is a unique combination of practical prayer and mystical transcendence, and that really resonates with me. The Celtic understanding is that our work in life has sacred purpose. The idea that prayer applies to everyday actions. I think that resonates with us as a community and the work we do, and I think it will resonate with the next generation of people coming into our faithful community. Now, the sabbatical grant will allow Reverend Paul and the vestry to add some support while I'm away. We have the great blessing of the Reverend Dr. David Angelica. He's always in our midst, officially with us part-time, but he has graciously agreed to spend more time with us in these 4 months while I'm gone. For this, I am personally extremely grateful, and I thank you, David. And it also helps me to feel a little less guilty about leaving our wonderful new rector with less assistance. As the congregation, we are engaging in a really wonderful new time, and these themes of sabbatical will enrich us as we do that. There will be guest preachers invited, likely 1 a month. In April, a class and worship experience on Celtic Christianity will be read by our own team of doctors, professors, Sandy Norman, Heather Fraser, and Jane Day. This series will present Celtic Christianity through the lens of these history, art, and archaeology professors. And Reverend David Angelica will work with them to add the ancient liturgy. During the sabbatical time, Reverend Paul and Reverend David are establishing some new clear directions for pastoral calls and responses. And I know you. You will take care of one another during this time. These are exciting times for St. Paul's. We have conversations with our new rectors and our leaders. We're looking at the impact of our call and our work here. We're challenging ourselves to a stewardship campaign that will ensure that we have the resources to do what we are called to do. We are inspiring more. We have the bold characteristics of our patron, Paul. And I plan to return to St. Paul's with renewed energy and renewed tools for this work that we have been given to do. It's an exciting time to look at the pieces of our mosaic. You all from the Delray vantage point, and me from a little distance. I'm really looking forward to my return and the next phase of life here at St. Paul's. We are indeed inspiring more people to act together in the community of Christ. We are changing the world around us. And so I encourage you, inspire more. Amen.